By improving upon the offensive capabilities of the already formidable Shran class, Starfleet's engineers have found themselves down a rabbit hole of creating one of the most heavily armed escorts to grace their shipyards. This design's most prominent features are the experimental weapons system pods mounted externally to the ship to isolate volatile and dangerous weaponry from the ship's other sensitive systems. Alongside its new arsenal options, this evolved design also features enhanced communication and coordination protocols to support the ship using its enhanced weaponry more safely and avoiding the risky friendly fire scenarios. This is the Cabot Command Light Escort. Let's go ahead and take a look at the build on this Fleet Nagi Command Light Escort. So on here, we're running a version of my Phase 2 torpedo build, really similar to what we were running on the Janeway, but obviously with some changes for the different weapons and console layout. So let's start with our four weapons. Here we've got the Enhanced Biomolecular Photon Torpedo Launcher. I absolutely love this torpedo. It hits hard under high yield, and I try to use it where I can, and it had a place on this build. Next, we have the Delphic Distortion Torpedo. This is mainly on here to be part of the two-piece set with the dual beam bank over here. And they're both pretty solid. I like this dual beam bank. We're running Fire at Will, and let's see, going on to this two-piece set, it's giving us a 1.3 boost target crit chance and a 12.5 target crit severity, which is always a nice to have. And then rounding out our four weapons here, we have the Dark Matter Quantum Torpedo Launcher. So this is another one that's working as part of a two-piece set. It's also a really fun torpedo, and it's one of the best under torpedo scatter volley. And then going in and looking at that two-piece set, we have on crit a +1 to crit severity buff for 20 seconds, which stacks up to 25 times, which is great because that is a potential for 25% extra crit severity. Moving on to our deflector, this is pretty much the same of my other Phase 2 builds. We have an Elite Fleet Intervention Protomatter deflector array with the Colony crit, some control expertise, EPS, and then our Shield Cap Control X. You can change up the roles as you see fit. I tend to go for Control X, mainly from the energy weapon builds. Obviously, that's not as useful here, so if you want to change it out, wouldn't be too much of a problem. For the Impulse Engines, we're running the Innervated Impulse Engines from the competitive reputation. Pretty easy choice. Firing modes are giving you that nice boost to your turn rate and flight speed. For our warp core, we're going for a fleet warp core. Again, this one you can change out depending on what you need. This one is a lot more suited for energy weapon builds. So if you wanted to run something like the Discovery one here, that would be a really good one to use. So, oh, that's not the one I wanted to click. Let's go ahead and throw on that mycelial warp core. And then for the shield, we're using Tilly's Review Pending Modified Shield. It's a great shield array. You get it from the reputation. I love it. In the back, we're running mines just because we can. Most useful weapons to put here. So we've got two Theron-infused quantum mine launchers from the reputation, and then the Black Ops mine launcher here. And for our experimental weapon, to sort of keep us in the torpedo theme, we have the Terran Repeating Warhead Launcher. I was going back and forth between that and the Soliton Wave Impeller. They're both really awesome experimental weapons, but I just like this one because it shoots out torps. For our devices, pretty simple setup. Kinetic amplifiers, Tyrium surplus, and the Kobayashi mirror transponder. Moving on to our consoles now, our universal console slot, going straight to Lorca's custom fire controls. It's a great console. Like I said, it's going back to that two-piece set. It's giving us shield pen, and it's giving us crit chance. Moving on to our engineering consoles, again, this is a lot like my setup on the Janeway. So we have the Plasma Storm module, the Tholian Web Spinner Array, and the Ferrofluid Hydraulic Assembly. So these two are both really great clickies that are hold effects, and then the Ferrofluid Hydraulic Assembly is really just for that minus 0.5 second share torpedo recharge time. Moving on to our science consoles, we don't really have any, so we're really just using them as universal slots. We have DPRM, always a great console to have on because I remembered to put it on this ship. Immolating Phaser Lance, it's a great console, does a ton of damage, and it's going to proc off universal designs for us. And then Bioneural Infusion Circuits. It's giving the ship a little bit more survivability, and more importantly, giving us some great crit severity. Moving on to tactical consoles. So this last one is the one we're going to start with, the Fakiri Torment Engine. It's going to give us some boost to our damage for non-hazard damage over time stuff, which is great. And for the rest of these consoles, we just have vulnerability locators and exploiters for torpedoes. You can change these out based on where your crits lie with endeavors and everything else. And right now I'm resting at a 48.1 crit chance and a 203.6 crit severity. So like I said, you can change out those consoles based on what you need more, but I found that this was a pretty nice balance for me. Moving on to our traits, let's start with our personal space traits. First, we've got Into the Breach. This is going to debuff all of the nearby enemies when we kill an enemy, which is a nice one to have. The further down we can get those resistances, the easier it will be to take them out. Next, we have Adaptive Offense. This is one I tend to use on a lot of my builds. It's just a nice boost to your crit chance, and then you get to trade crit chance for crit severity, which is always nice. We like to focus on crits. Next, we have Context is for Kings. Again, this is a trait I tend to use on a lot of builds. Take damage in the last second, you get damage resistance rating, and if you didn't take damage, you get bonus damage. Always nice to have. Next, pretty simple one, Projectile Training. You can definitely use the superior version of this, which is even better. I just haven't gone to go pick it up from K13 yet. Next, we have Intelligence Agent Attaché, which is on Weapon Critical Strike. We'll restore 2% of our Captain Ability Recharge. This will help things like Attack Pattern Alpha, Go Down Fighting is another big one, Tactical Initiative, and our Vulnerability Assessment Sweep. Next, we have Fleet Coordinator. Again, this is one that's going to be super useful in TFOs. For the patrols we're running, not as helpful because we're just getting that 2%. But when you've got a full team of 5, that's 10% bonus damage for your ship. Next, we have Terran Targeting Systems. Another big one, just a nice boost to our crit severity. Good Day to Die. Again, this is really just so we can use Go Down Fighting at any hull integrity, because that is a 50% bonus all damage, which is so nice. It's one of the great parts about being a tactical captain. You get 50% from Go Down Fighting 3, and you get 49.8 crit severity and 49.8 bonus all damage from Attack Pattern Alpha 3. Next, we have Anchored. This is going to give us a bonus to our damage while we're sitting still. So in an ISC or something, when you're just sitting still, you're able to build that up, which is nice. And then lastly, but certainly not least, we have the Boimler effect. Needs no real explanation. It's a trait you should be using. It's a fantastic trait. Moving on to our starship traits. For this torp build, we're running Entwined Tactical Matrices so that we have as many torpedo sprites as possible going off. We have Ceaseless Momentum, which is going to give us a bonus to our kinetic damage every time we fire a torpedo, and is giving us that 1 second recharge time reduction to all of our torpedoes. Next, we have Supercharged Weapons. This is going to give us crits whenever we fire a torpedo, which again, we'll be doing a lot of. We have Subspatial Warheads. For the in-between the torp spread times, we will have a High Yield 3 going off here, and that is going to give us those subspace tears that do oh so very much damage. Next, we are trying out one of the new traits, the trait off of this ship. After a weapon mode activation, doing an additional amount of kinetic damage to a target from the next torpedo weapon, which is going to happen again quite a lot. So we're going to wait and we're going to see how that trait performs. And then lastly, we've got universal designs here, crit chance and crit severity on those universal consoles like the Immolating Phaser Lance. Moving on, we have our space reputation. We have Tyler's Duality, which is giving us a little bit of crit chance from our hull capacity. We're not getting the full boost from this because our hull is not super high. It's just under 100,000, but any amount is nice to have. Next, we have Omega Kinetic Shearing. This is going to take our torpedo damage, and it's going to add a DOT that, happens over the next 6 seconds after the torpedo hits. Next, we have Precision. Simple one, 5% crit hit chance. We have the Torpedo Pre-Fire Sequence, which is just a nice bonus to our torpedo damage, as well as giving us some additional flight speed for our destructible torpedoes. I don't believe we have any on this ship, but that bonus torpedo damage is a very nice to have. And then lastly, we have Advanced Targeting Systems, which is a nice boost to our critical severity. Moving on to our bridge officer stations, we have all 3 of our SROs, we have a Kentari, and we have the Doctor here. So this space right now, I have the Doctor in here, but something a little bit better to use would probably be the Potato Head, our Hierarchy Officer. Like I said, pretty great one to use because you're getting that bonus damage. Plus, I can basically put the same things on here anyway. I would run Delayed Overload Cascade. I do really like that bridge officer ability, but because we don't have a gravity well, we're really not going to get a whole lot out of it. So it might be better to use, say, a hull heal or perhaps something like structural analysis to take away the damage resistance ratings of your enemies. But that will ultimately be up to you. Moving back to our SROs here, we have our torpedo spread 1. Again, this is our first torpedo spread. We have attack pattern beta, which is going to, again, knock out the damage resistance ratings of our targets. And then we're going to have that high yield 3 that's going to go off in between our torpedo spreads. Moving to the next SRO, we have distributed targeting. This is just a really nice ensign ability to have. Obviously, you could use something like overwhelm emitters, but I've come to really like distributed targeting. There's a lot of things you could use in this place. There's also tactical team, obviously. And yeah. Next, we have beams fire at will 2. So this is going to be the other thing which is helping us with entwined tactical matrices. This will also be giving us a torp spread. Next, we have concentrated firepower 3. Again, that's a high yield torpedo, which is super nice, as well as any foe that gets marked by this will have an extra 20% kinetic damage done to them, which is 100% shield penetration. And then lastly, we have Call Emergency Artillery 3. This is such a fun ability, especially now that they've tuned it so that your ships won't miss. It's a lot of fun. Obviously, if you wanted to do more support, you could go for Suppression Barrage in this slot, but I like Call Emergency Artillery. For this last Ensign Tactical slot, we have Chemosite Laced Weaponry 1. I absolutely love this ability, and on a torp build, it's that much more damage because it's always going to activate off of our torpedoes. For our Engineer, it's pretty bog standard. We have Engineering Team 1 just in case we need a hull heal. We have Let It Go, which is just a nice little debuffer, and then does a little bit of cold damage on top of that. And then we have Emergency Power to Weapons 3. We like going fast, and there's less reason to have Emergency Power to Weapons 3 on here because we don't have any energy weapons that we're trying to get damage out of. Moving on to our duty officers, I would say that these aren't the best because a lot of the Borg duty officers are very expensive, but we've made the best with what we have. So first, we have Law. This is a chance to reduce the time to recharge torpedoes. We have 23 of 47, which on tactical abilities offers a 15% chance to improve our team-wide maximum hull, and then on command abilities has a 30% chance of improving our crit severity. Next, we have Beegis, who has a chance for second crit severity on firing projectiles. We have an Emergency Con hologram, which is going to recharge our evasive maneuvers whenever we use our emergency powered engines, which is right here. We have a crit chance buff on firing projectiles. And then lastly, we have Vincent Kish. This one is just one I like to throw on ships, and it's got a chance of making our Fire at Will 2 a Fire at Will 3. Other than that, he's not doing too much. In the future, I'd like to replace him with another Command Borg duty officer, but for now, that's what we're going to use. Now, let's take this ship into a patrol or two and see how it performs.
your assistance. And there we have the sun.
So, as you saw, this ship did not have a problem getting through that patrol. But let's take it into something a little bit hairier to see how its survivability stacks up versus other escorts we've flown. Let's head into a rescue and search now.
Good to see you, my friend. As am I. We can ponder them. We did it. Klingon vessels are warping into your position.
Our systems under the if you feel.
That's one less with the world. Let's regroup with the market.
Bad news, Hunters. Klingons are approaching our position.
Well, I would say I'm impressed by its performance in those two patrols. We managed not to die, even in rescue and search, while granted we did have to back off from combat a couple of times to prevent ourselves from dying. But overall, I would still rate this ship pretty well as far as its survivability goes. It's fast enough to get out of a fight that it can't win, and that definitely gets it some points. For damage, I would definitely rank this ship around an 8, and for survivability, I'd probably give it around a 7 out of 10 for both. It's a really fun ship. I'd say it's probably the best of the three out of the bundle, but I still need to do more testing on the Bozeman before I can really say that for sure. But what are your thoughts of the ship? Let me know in the comments below. Also, check out the visual overview video we have on this ship and the entire Federation Responder bundle. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. As always, you have been live with Endeavor Gaming, and remember to keep calm and game on.